or the professional registry listed, and I don't know how you'll...
Our case managers do have a list, and so does our CHDP clinic people, which is what does the screening at Betty Jo McNeese. We know all of the dental providers and can make those referrals. There are 12 of them.
I think it's interesting to note, Mr. Chair, that pertaining to the work of your case managers, they're not able to dictate where clients will receive their dental care. In essence, so the client themselves has the, his or herself has, or the family, since we're dealing mostly with minors, I believe, they can choose from anywhere of the 12 or more business operations that provide these services now.
Yes, Medi-Cal in Imperial County is a fee-for-service, and there is a choice. Under managed care Medi-Cal programs, there are less choices for families, but that's not the system that we have in place in Imperial County.
Okay. Any other questions? Motion is for us to adopt the requested actions. Please vote.
Did anyone who made the motion?
Wally.
I think it would be appropriate
I'm sorry.
for HR to
I would so
specifically...
Second.
I think the action that you specifically need to take is not in front of you.
Oops.
What was that again?
So we can make sure the board is clear.
Yeah, I think there are specific actions that you need to take, and I'm not sure that that is articulated. And Ron, perhaps you can give them the magic language.
It would be direct human resources to follow the force reduction based on our county ordinance for this particular.
But it also would be required to eliminate the allocations.
Well, bring it back.
Bring it back next week.
No, we're not going to do that.
I withdraw my motion.
Hang on a second.
I'll withdraw the second.
We're making a whole new motion that's not even agendized.
You're adding to the motion slightly, and that is to also clean up the allocations. So it does talk in here about authorizing the process of closing the dental program in concert with human resources, and to follow the policy and procedure for force reduction layoff. So those are already in there. What you're saying is that we also need then to trim the allocation, personnel allocation list.
Yeah, actually, that in the motion, those actions need to be included that actually do this, and that would be to eliminate those allocations.
I think we need to bring this back next week.
I would say though, in the direction to, if this is what you want to do is from a program level, a higher level, go ahead and take that action and give us direction to do so, because it is a process that needs to be begun, and then we can bring back the allocations and the changes, you know, as we're going through the process.
I think bring it back next week cleaned up totally.
Okay. Any objection to that? All right.
If we start to eliminate a program just on wording at this board, I get very uncomfortable.
Well, there is, it's agreement about eliminating the program and doing the forced reduction layoff. But what isn't known is the other language that needs to be how to.
What you're going to do is you need to do it correctly.
All right.
Not only that, what would be the timeline when this force reduction would take place as to notifying the current clients that do receive these services of the county provided versus when the office actually comes to closure?
The force reduction policy requires a minimum of 30 days notice, so we'll be working with the clients as soon as we receive the direction, which is why we've come to you to give that direction so we can start this process.
And when do the lease agreements expire?
July 31st.
July 31st, so it is somewhat time sensitive as well. Otherwise you have to extend the month-to-month lease or whatever the language kicks in.
Does it require specific board action? I'm asking council and CEO here. Does it require specific board action for you to begin that process? Or does it,
I would prefer to have board direction to begin that process.
A vote?
Yes.
Okay, well then you have to wait a week.
Well, the question is not whether you prefer it. Mr. County Council, does it require that they have action to begin the process? You may make Mr. Grassi comfortable, but...
Because my point on asking that question was I think the consensus of this board is that to go ahead with that, but being uncertain of the
And
cleanup.
direction has been provided, so I mean, continue to move forward unless you need a paper trail to keep supporting every move you make.
I would make a motion to serve notice on the lease.
Yeah, I think the concern I have is because there are time limits and times that are identified in our force reduction policy, there does need to be a board action. I obviously would be more comfortable if the board action had said everything that, all of the personnel actions that need to be
All right,
done.
let me ask you this, Roberta. How long would it take today to put this together? Can you do it in a short fashion?
I would imagine HR could probably do it in about 15 minutes.
All right, then, would you please come back in a short while, and we'll continue on with the agenda.
Yeah, but how, under what auspices are we going to change the agenda on such short notice?
It is in the letter, it is discussed in the letter that is what is intended, but the requested action does not articulate all of those actions.
It's not going to change the requested, the following is requested. It will add to it just about the personnel allocations, is what I assume you're talking about.
I'd say that if we're going to change it, let's do it for next week. Are you meeting next week? You're meeting on the
Yes,
first.
we are meeting.
Let's change it for the first, then I'll have time to
Right,
do
but
it.
what does that do with, as Mr. Grogan brought up, the lease agreement?
Well, the lease gives us 30 days. Next week is July 1. And the
We don't have to give them any notice
I
or anything.
think that the normal rule is that you've got to give a 30-day notice on your lease. Now, so you may end up with 30 days on the lease, but the more important issue that I think we have is with regard to the employees. And so we need to look at that issue. I think Mr. Cordova might have an idea on that.
It's not the lease, we've been evicted. So we're evicted, we have no dental office as of July 31st.
Okay, so that's not an issue.
That's not a
You know, if
good.
you pay your rent once in a while, you pay good role model for the county.
Well, this is true. Gotta save it somehow.
Yeah.
But we are
All
being
right.
evicted, so there is no dental office
Okay, then
location.
there's no
as of
time
July 31st.
pressure on that sense. Okay.
No
All
dental service.
right, so then we'll bring it back next week.
Yeah, the 30 days has to do with the force reduction policy.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Next week. Next item is item number 13, discussion and regarding the letter to the California Energy Commission.
Mr. Chair,
We're not going to go through this entire presentation, are we?
I hope not.
Mr. Chairman, I'll include myself.
Yes, excuse me, hang on. Mr. Grogan has recused himself as indicated last week because of potential conflicts.
Bring back a couple of Diet Cokes later.
Courtesy of the Imperial Valley Press. Is he the one?
I need my cup, since I might as well make a good time of this.
Mr. Chairman, Andy Warren, the CEO's office. This is a continuation from an agenda item that we thought was an emergency last week. It turns out, after talking to Mr. Schreiner, who is here today, that it wasn't really that big of an emergency, so we tabled it to get some more information. But what I passed out is Mr. Schreiner provided as a copy of the application to the California Energy Commission for this grant that you'll see is for a survey of geothermal resources in the Truck Haven area. Their company, Desmerel Truck Haven Geothermal LLC, has been selected as a successful applicant for grant monies out of the Geothermal Resources Development Account, which comes from monies that is generated through royalties on federal lands. During the meeting discussion last week, we were asked to determine whether or not this would have an impact on our PIP payments, as geothermal royalties do that are paid to the county. This is a very, arcane formula that they use, and Ms. Burns and I have been...
Well, I would use other words, but
Well, you've been around longer than I have. That would be used to calculate that. Fortunately, Supervisor Limegroover has a contact who I talked to, Jerry Hillier, with his Quad States